Hello and welcome to another Würth Elektronik ISIS webinar. My name's Richard Blake and I'll be moderating the webinar today. We are very pleased you took the time to participate in our webinar and to see so many people participating. Our speaker today is FAE and Business Development Manager, Laurent Foucault. Today we have a really interesting topic. Energy harvesting is no longer a fiction. He'll also be happy to answer any questions you might have. Before we start the webinar, just some information. You'll be muted during the webinar, which means you can't ask any questions via microphone during the webinar, but you have the opportunity to ask us questions during the webinar at any time via the chat function, which you can find in the webinar control panel. The webinar will be about 30 minutes long, and chat questions you've asked will be answered in the question-answer session following the webinar. There are 15 minutes in addition scheduled for this, and if we are unable to answer all questions within these 15 minutes, please email us at isiswebinar@we-online.com. We'll try to answer all questions as quickly as we can. At the end of the webinar, you'll be asked to participate in a feedback survey. We'll be pleased if you take the time to fill out the survey and help us to optimize our webinars. The link to the recording of today's webinar, as well as the presentation, will be sent to you in a separate email one day after the webinar, and you can also watch the recording of today's webinar a day later on our website. You can find this on our webinar page on the Würth Elektronik YouTube channel. So now, without further delay, I'm going to hand directly over to our speaker, Laurent, and I wish you an exciting webinar.
Thank you, Richard. Very nice introduction. So my name is Laurent Foucault, and I will talk today about energy harvesting. Energy harvesting is something really cool. As soon you taste it and you try to develop something totally autonomously, you will enjoy it a lot, like me, I do. When you talk about energy harvesting, the first idea, you think energy for free. It means energy, it is something which you get for nothing, so you don't have to pay for that. Today, electronics, if you make some home automation or even plant automation, you're really happy if you don't need to wire all these additional sensors and devices. You can do today really completely autonomous devices which can be high reliable, and if you want to use a backup battery or a rechargeable battery, you can extend the lifetime up to 15 or even 20 years. When you talk about energy harvesting, you have to consider that the physics law are still absolutely valid, and you cannot get energy from a different dimension or parallel universe. You have to find in some way to find this kind of different non-electrical form of energy. You have to harvest them to convert them into electrical energy. And of course, you need some kind of power management to store in the meantime when you are not using this energy to be available, that when is no energy form, you had stored something before you don't use it, and then you recall it when you need it. In the mechanical age, when a ship approached to a port, we had this kind of bells on this buoy. It means when the ship comes too close to this buoy, it makes some wave, and the bells start to ring because it starts to move. And one guy on the front of the ship, because it was foggy, tell to the captain, "Hey, captain, we are too close. The bell is ringing too loud. Go a few miles away from the ground." In the digital age today, these buoys are not anymore mechanical, or electronical, and transmit the exactly GPS position from the Earth position. And in this case, you can imagine if this electronic device would be powered by cable, well, if it's a very, very long cable in the water and you move it too often because of the waves and storms and so however, after a while this cable will be broken and you have to use another cable. So these guys are doing totally autonomously. They use the solar light and they use the movement of the waves, and they don't need to swim every 6 months to the buoy to change the batteries. Of course, to manufacture such kind of device, You need a very high accuracy, and you need to make a very good energy management. You need a very good concept of your software with your hardware. Even the communication should work in a very low power, and of course when it's not needed to be in deep sleep mode. It's not so tricky, not so easy just to make a DC-DC converter. It is a little bit more. The many important thing, the first step, it is to know exactly what is your total energy demand. Because when you know for how long time how much energy you need, and especially if you know the peak energy demand, you can easily calculate with this formula the energy which you will need to power your device. As soon you know what is the demand of your system, then you can go the next step and consider which kind of source capability you have around you. You can check from some light like solar or temperature difference to use thermoelectric generation. You can use vibration, motion. You can use even a chemical like from the wastewater. You can use the pH effect. Important is that you use a logger, that you know the stability over the time for these different non-electrical source capability, because then you know how to make your next step to consider the harvester, and also to which kind of storage you have to use. It's enough if you use just a capacity bank, some capacitor in parallel, or you need a super cap, or you need ultra caps, or even lithium ion rechargeable battery or lithium polymer batteries. Today, all the electronics devices becomes less power hungry. All the new processor becomes less power hungry. I don't talk about our mobile phones. The mobile phone is an exception. The harvester becomes more capable, and in some way you can harvest, like if you harvest for waves, or for RF, for radio frequency waves, you can harvest something like 0.1 microwatt per centimeter square. The thing is, even if you're living very close to a mobile phone base station, you should not build a Yagi antenna and build a 1 watt LED behind to just have a free energy, because this is like in Germany is illegal. In many countries, I guess it's illegal, because when you harvest 1 watt from the mobile base station, the network provider have to put inside 500 watt at least to reach your demand, and you will suck away too much from this field. But with vibration, you can reach already 1 milliwatt per centimeter square. With a thermoelectric generator, 10 milliwatt per square centimeter is quite very normal, and this is not something very high tech. I saw already one company who can harvest already 1 watt per centimeter square. Of course, a very high temperature difference, like more like 80 Kelvin, but it still works. It's quite possible. With photovoltaic, I think 100 milliwatt per centimeter square is not a problem today. Of course, if you use a very good cell. But you can imagine there are many electronic devices which are working already with this kind of harvesting sources. Like if you think on electronic watch, it's a quartz watch. The first harvesting device, maybe you had an automatic mechanical clock, which was already energy harvesting, but not in electrical form. But there are other companies, I don't want to make commercial for any brands, but there are at least 2 companies on the market which are providing electronic watches with quartz driven, and they are using the kinetic energy of your hand movement or the ecological driving of your movement or solar. Now, maybe if some of you are already smiling because you know which brands I did tell. Well, we did develop with linear technology today. It's called analog devices, which have been acquired from them. We did develop kind of demo evaluation kit, which you can do your first steps and evaluate and try to make a device totally autonomously. In one board is the power board, where you can have this thermoelectric generator and the solar cells, and even you can connect a piezo or inductive harvester additional, and you have the possibility with the jumpers and the switch to switch additional the capacity bank or a super cap or even the lithium cell, or you have even the possibility of a backup battery. So actually you have on one single DC-DC converter 7 different sources which can be used. Now all this power can be given to the smart board, which is using a dust network chip, which have been acquired for linear, and they now analog devices. So this dust chip have ARM Cortex M3 core, which has inside of the processor or RF module. So from one leg, one pin from the processor, you can go directly to antenna. You just have to make the antenna matching, and you can communicate. And when you put the processor in deep sleep mode, his current consumption is so low that you need column counter. The column consumption is 150 nanoamp in deep sleep mode, and all the peripheral is still alive. To measure that, you need a column counter, which is also on this motherboard included on the back side. You just have to connect the USB port cable, because the column counter needs much more current that you measure it. And when you're measuring by a USB cable, powered from a USB cable, you have a free software which you can download it from the analog device website. It's called Quick Eval, and you can exactly measure the demand of the processor when you're receiving, transmitting, or you execute kind of command. For display, we did decide to use a E-ink display, because E-ink display needs energy only when it's written, new pixel, whatever. And you can harvest here on the power board with one DC-DC converter at least 3 different sources like thermoelectric, piezo, and solar. And the processor, the DC-DC converter is almost like a PGA connector, and have already intelligence, because he decides if the harvester is supplying energy, disconnect the backup and start to deliver on output. When the energy from the input is still much more like the output it need, he start to put this energy into the backup. Whatever, you can put a capacity bank, or you can put capacity bank and supercap, because it has a balancer as well. And if these are charged, it has another output to lithium ion battery to recharge it. So the wall management is completely into the DC-DC controller. They are working a very high efficient level, because we are harvesting microwatts anyway. The maximum output current of this DC-DC converter is 50 milliamp. But you have a power good information on the chip, because you want not to boot the processor until the 3.3 volt are reached, and you have a steady state, and then start the processor to operate. And additional, you can have additional information on one pin if it's working on energy harvesting right now, the source, or the source is given from a battery or from a backup capacity or supercap. This is the power device, the power PCB, which can be used also standalone without the smart board. You just have to think about to use your own load. All the application note available on the website. You can decide if you want to use the solar cell in serial or in parallel. You can switch the battery, backup battery, for yes or no. All these different, you can use it. You can use even the piezo directly to the IC. You don't need a rectifier, because the rectifier is built into the IC. The only one thing is, by the piezo, normally you have a very high voltage. The piezo input of the IC, it is limited to 20 volt. It has a voltage clamping of 20 volt, and you cannot use higher voltage like 20 volt. So you put higher voltage at 20 volt, but it will be used only until the 20 volt energy. For the RF communication board, you have in the kit already also a dongle which contains the same chip, and it will automatically communicate with your processor with your dongle. It is already paired, and you can have all this data from the dust motor, and then you can put some additional shield box. You see here you have these different 2 connectors, and on these 2 connectors you can put the included expansion shield PCB, where you can put your different ICs, or you can put your different sensors, whatever, and you can access directly this chip to convert these different sensing, temperature, whatever. By the way, it's a temperature sensing, and humidity sensor is already built in. You can see here by the LTC 3330, when it's running on a battery, on a backup battery, as soon the harvester, in this case the piezo harvester, start to operate, automatically the battery is completely disconnected. It's totally switched off. The only one current which is flowing through him is the internal resistance of his own, and that's the only one loss. You can put even a solar additional on AC1, or you can put the piezo on AC1 and AC2 together, both connected. It works perfectly, and you don't have to think about how it is made, because it's very intelligent. You have even two different outputs, 1.8 to 5 volt or 1.2 to 3.3 volts additional from the LDO as well. Well, the first electronic harvester, maybe not everybody had an automatic watch, but I guess everybody in the childhood drive bicycle. And the first energy harvesting device, even you not imagine, it was your dynamo, your generator on your bicycle. Well, I don't want to talk about his efficiency because it was less than 10%. And when you switch on this generator on the bike, you did feel it. You have to push more and more because it was already a resistance in your bike and your speed. But anyhow, that was the first energy harvesting device, which I guess everybody at least has used it at least on one time in your life. Some other energy harvesting devices like Ocean, they are making almost more like 10 years these switches. They are very clever design. The mechanical energy, when you push this button, it's more like enough to operate and to harvest energy of this mechanic movement of your finger and make a switch to connect the light to make a RF signal. The RF signal, it can be in Zigbee, it can be in Z-Wave, even in proprietary, they have different protocol. The last generation I saw that is also by BLE, low power Bluetooth, and you have even detection of positive or negative click, so you can switch on or switch off the light, and you just can upgrade your home. Or you can imagine you make a new office and you put a nice glass wall, and now because of the switch on the light, you have to put on the glass wall wires. How ugly it is, like if you glue some wires on this glass, even if you use very thin ones, come on, you just stick it and it works, and you don't have maintenance at all. It doesn't need battery, it doesn't need anything, just one time to pair it with your receiver. PMDM, they make also some switchers, some industrial switches, or vibration harvester, special for, I have one for diesel engine as well. It's harvesting the energy from the vibration from the engine, and you can convert quite very good energy for this. Ferro Solution and Perpetuum from UK, they are doing for the train. They are harvesting the vibration of the wheel and the train, and they monitor if this wheel is broken or not. As soon the wheel is broken, have a different fingerprint of his vibration, and automatically this device start to transmit to the gateway and make alarm to the guy who's driving the train, or on the central, attention, wagon number 5, wheel number 1 have a different fingerprint of vibration. It means whatever you have a problem on the wheel, they will slow down and we check it, and you will not have any damage on the train, especially when you think about high-speed train, which is traveling by 300 km per hour. You don't want to have a crack on one wheel and then drive 300 km per hour. So that would be a nice product for all the high-speed train worldwide. PI Ceramic in Germany, they are doing also some standards. You can have some standard ceramic harvester in different sizes. Up to you where you want to stick it or glue it. You can do already some harvesting device. So they are standard from stock. Everything what you see in my presentation, you can buy it from stock. It's available standard, not science fiction product, are really available. The ICs, the inductors, the harvester, everything you can get from stock. If you harvest thermoelectric, so if you have a temperature difference, the thermoelectric generator, everybody say it is a Peltier element, which I say no, it is a thermoelectric because it's based on Seebeck effect. Seebeck guy was the guy who did discover that when you put hot on one side and cool down the other side, so the reverse of Peltier You give current and cool down and make hot. This guy was, he will make hot and cool down on the other side, start this thermoelectric generator to supply electricity. But the electricity is very low. It's something like 30 millivolt to maximum 500 millivolt by the maximum peak. But this is not enough to start to operate the IC. So you will need to boost this voltage to a little bit higher, and then Würth Elektronik start to build this kind of small inductor kind of transformer, which boosting this 30 millivolt to higher voltage by 100, and then the IC start to operate. But like you see, it's a very funny design, because a thermoelectric generator supply a DC current. To put a DC current to a transformer is not that clever. Well, the cleverness is in the IC. As soon the IC receive any voltage, he start to sweep, he start to oscillate on primary, and as soon he start to oscillate in primary, you generate a flux in the transformer, and on the secondary side, now you can grab the power, and now you can start to operate in a really DC-DC conversion, and then you can start to supply on output the constant 3.3 volt or whatever to put to the backup battery or to storage in somehow. The transformer or the small inductor, you can see here a magnetical cut. It is a mechanical cut in the middle. You can see on the left picture, this is 1 to 100, on the right picture 1 to 50, and you can see here the different size of the winding. The left hand one, you can see this is the thinnest wire which can be still used in the winding machine. And we use the thinnest wire which the winding machine can still handle it. And then we make that 1 to 100 ratio. And first of all, think about which is primary and secondary. The thin one is the primary. No, the thick one is the primary, but we handle here microamps or microwatts. Why we use that kind of thickness of wire? Not because of the high current, because of the we don't want to lose by the DC resistance anything. When we are harvesting, we are not harvesting megawatts or kilowatts. This is another dimension. We are working in a very low power, and that's the reason we don't want to waste anything on the DC resistance. These components, of course, is standard from stock, like the older IC. You can get them in different turns ratio. Even if you want something very special, we can do that for you with a different small core size or what is available from our tooling, and you can use them to use your DC-DC converter in very low voltage, where you can find different application for energy harvesting. One of our customers make kind of monitoring of the container when it's traveling on the ocean. You know, sometimes this container falling in water. And how to monitor that? Very simple. The big ship diesel is vibrating. This vibration, it's harvested. They're using a system which is giving information to a gateway, which is connected by the satellite. And as soon one container doesn't vibrate anymore, or it doesn't give any ping, it means, it's something wrong. It's loosened in the ocean, or maybe it is taking a different way. The railways are using as well harvesting. The German railways use more like 20 years harvesting system to monitor the lines and to monitor the position of the trains. You can have a harvesting system for controlling the windows on big buildings, or security system, plant monitoring. And if you did buy in the last, as I would say in Germany, if you buy a car in the last 2-3 years, since 2015, every car must have a tire pressure monitoring system. And the beginning was very cheap solution, just counting the ABS sensor on every wheel, but it was not so precise. Today's car, they only just not counting, they give you also the information about the pressure of the tire, and the premium class even give you information about the temperature of the tire. And you can imagine if it's that made with a sensor which is battery powered, it's not so funny than when you have to go every 3-4 months to get off the wheel, get out the rim, and change the battery of your sensor. They're using already in some cars already energy harvesting devices. Already when you turn your wheel turns 2 times 360 degrees, it's enough energy to transmit the pressure and you have, as soon you get out on the garage, the first information, attention, wheel on the front left, it has not enough air, please refill it or go to the gas station and put some air inside. If it's completely deflated, you will feel it. You don't need a tire pressure monitoring system. ABB making some very nice temperature sensor for industrial monitoring, completely autonomously. The sensor and the temperature is the same, so they sensing and grabbing directly the temperature from what they want to measure in the plant, and you can see this heat sink, and then you can decide you will use a Zigbee or own protocol, depends on the system which you want to implement. This is also standard product which can be achieved and can be used. Another nice development from Fraunhofer Institute, they make a chip, and on the chip himself they put the solar cells directly on the chip, and inside of this chip it is a DC-DC converter, the harvester for the solar cell, and also the motion sensor, the same motion sensor like you will find in your mobile phone. And then you can monitor the window, if the window is closed, open, or somebody tried to intrude, or somebody broke the window, because have the shock sensor inside, and it is very, very small chip, one device which can be put into the window in the vacuum area, and it's total autonomously. You never need to change anything, no battery inside. They're using kind of super caps inside for the monitoring and for the storage energy, and you can use by indoor or outdoor light as well. I hope one day this will be a mass production product for somebody who will buy it. They have all the technology to do that in mass production, just they need somebody, a partner, to buy this technology to start to build mass production windows with these inside built-in devices. It's also a RF module, by the way. I did make quite a nice inquiry on the customer who did make anything by designing energy harvesting, and when I asked these customers what was the minimum and maximum energy what they harvest, it was very nice. In some project the minimum power was 50 microwatt and the maximum power was 200 milliwatt. I did decide to not to filter the customer who are using in high big scale like 5 watt using solar cells, because it is harvesting, of course it is energy harvesting, but this is on a different scale. I don't want to compare with gigawatts and megawatts or something like that. Today I want to know what is the possibility to do a device, very small device, which can cover quite broadband different application. And with this meteorological station which have a GSM and GPS module with a solar cell 5 watt, this is okay, it is harvesting, but much more interesting are these different devices, like when you're using wearables and you have wearables which have no battery and can be washed and is charging just by using. And this is something which I say, wow, this is really, really cool device and excellent to use in different application. One day we will have all these different application. The most nice application what I saw this year, it was in Las Vegas. It was on the CES show. L'Oreal, a company which I know from my wife. She's using different creams from this company. They come to the CES show with a very interesting device. It's a very small UV sensor which is just stick it to the nail. You can see here this lady have a stick it on his finger, and during the day this device is measuring the UV light which is reaching your body, and on the evening you can take your mobile phone, and with the app and the NFC, you can see the NFC flexible PCB here. This is an NFC antenna. You can get the information how much UV light you get during the day. And the solar cell in this time is not a solar cell. They use a UV LED. You can see the UV LED here. it's not to make UV light, it is just to convert the UV light into the electricity and put it in a processor, store the energy, make the data logging, and on the evening when you are, or the next day, you can just have the information how much UV light you get per day. And according to this information, you can decide for the next day you should use for the which kind of filter of your cream you should use, factor 50 or factor 50, 15, 50 or 25, depends on your skin. You can even have with the app or skin analysis and so on. It's very interesting product, and this is something which is not so expensive, not so I would say not so fancy, but it's very useful for your body, and especially for people who have some afraid about skin cancer. Another interesting device, Professor Rogers on the University of Illinois in Chicago, he did make a very interesting product, a pacemaker. I have different publication of that. He did make a mesh, a piezo mesh, which is sticked directly to the heart. And when the heart is beating, you're grabbing enough energy that you don't need for a pacemaker to use a battery. So you can imagine if you have a pacemaker, and the pacemaker normally would work more like 20 years, but after 5 to 8 years at least, you have to make another surgery just to change the battery. This is not a good idea, but with these new devices, with this new energy harvesting mesh, you will be able, maybe 5-10 years later, I don't know how long it will take until it will be released for the medicine device. Right now they are in testing on animals, which is working quite very perfect. I don't know when it will be the first human testing and released for the human being. It will be very nice to have a pacemaker which is running on own, pumping the blood by contraction, and this is enough to power the pacemaker. You can see some prototypes here in the previous stage. The next on the bottom, it is monitoring of the it's glued on your skin, and on the left picture on the bottom you can see here, this is the device which was the prototype. You can still see our antennas and our inductors, but it's quite very bulky and too big. And then they change different technology, and they have some solar sensors inside. They have also some EKG sensors. You can have EKG, you can have blood pulse, you can have blood sugar, temperature, all that in something which is very reliable. You can even go to shower, and at least 1-2 weeks you can wear it, only if you not scratch on it. It still operate very reliable because you have a flexible structure and bendable, and you can use it on your body, and you have all these different functions monitored on your skin. Another energy harvesting application I did discover from a guy in Brazil. This guy did make a snoring harvesting device. This is no joke. He get the Red Dot Award for this device. You can imagine, during a man is sleeping and snoring quite very loud, he harvests this energy, this vibration, and start to charge mobile phone. Of course, you will not be able to completely charge a mobile phone. You give some additional energy, but you will be not able to. I cannot imagine that somebody can snore so loud and so long that your mobile phone will be charged. But anyhow, it works. He got the Red Dot Award. He has some prototypes as well. And I asked him, hey guy, I know that my wife not snoring like me, but how about if she want to use this one? Absolutely, immediately he replied to me, no problem. We did discover that woman, when they make sportive and sportive activity, they make also some kind of noise, and even this noise is working perfectly. Well, you can see sometimes energy harvesting is funny application, but as soon you want to design something, just get in contact with us. You can get all this information on our website as well. We have 2 different kits. One of the design kit, development kit, is to go. We say to go because you open the box and it starts already to run. It's based with the Silicon Labs Giant Gecko EFM32 chip. It's a 3250 megahertz processor, ARM Cortex M3 core as well. And another one, the Gleanergy kit, which is developed with the linear and dust networks, now analog devices. It is also RF module into the chip. Also ARM Cortex M3 core based, also 150 nanoamps in deep sleep mode like the other one. Just you have a second dongle which you communicate with the kit without cables. It's also RF. Just feel to ask us, or you can go to our one of our distributor like Mauser or Farnell or DigiKey, and you can get all these different boxes. Now, I will answer to some question. Which energy storage device have the lowest leakage current? Which one has the best price performance ratio? Well, which energy storage device? I would say it depends on your budget, because of course you can use capacitors, you can use supercaps, you can use lithium polymer accus, the lithium polymer rechargeable batteries or lithium ion batteries. Everything have a leakage current. The supercap, there are some supercap, new supercaps on the market which have extremely low leakage current. So it depends how long you want to store the energy and how much energy. What efficiency can be achieved with the energy management IC with the thermal electric generator? Well, on this question is difficult to answer, because I can tell you the efficiency from after you harvest the energy on the TEG, and you have a DC voltage, and you have an input DC voltage to output DC voltage. This efficiency with the IC from LinearTech can achieve 97-98% efficiency. They are extremely efficient and extremely low losses. Another question: what efficiency can be achieved with the harvesting kit with the various energy generation options? Well, I told you, you talk about always about the electricity efficiency and not about the efficiency from thermal energy into electricity. This is a part which you have to apply to a thermoelectric generator manufacturer. We are passive component manufacturer. We don't have a TEG in our portfolio. I cannot give you this answer. How long the Gleanergy kit have been on the market? Well, we start to manufacture this actually in 2017, but we have to stop the trading because we had a little problem. The protocol, it is so good encrypted and so nice made that he's transmitting not all the time, and when he's transmitting is just a few micromilliseconds, and that was not good enough from kind of, I would say, authority to be able to jam it. And then we get a very nice letter that we have to stop to deal with these chips, and after Dust Network did offer them the possibility and all the codes and every information how to jam it and how to scream it, then we get again the releasement that we can use this device worldwide and we can use it to sell it, because some bad guys can have a bad idea with this. It's really cool when you have a scanner and you start to see that the device is not transmitting at all, and the scanner was not fast enough to have the information, and your second device already have the communication already done. It is really cool. I was really impressed with the spectrumalizer that the sweep was not fast enough to catch the wave. Yeah, I hope that you have some good ideas. I hope that you get some additional ideas. If you just want to have some more information, just go to our website, try to contact us or my colleagues in sales. They will be very, very happy to give you some information about that. Hope you enjoy it. Please watch the next webinars from us as well. And I have also a Twitter and LinkedIn account. We have also a YouTube channel. Please visit our website and channels and get in touch with us. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.